Today's interview question is, where does Spring Boot look for properties.file by default? Spring Boot follows a convention-based approach for externalized configuration. By default, it looks for configuration file like application.properties or application.yaml. These files can be packed inside application jar or they can be provided externally. This is useful because we can keep our default configuration inside application and override environment specific values externally without rebuilding the jar. Now let's look at the default search location. Spring Boot searches this location in the increasing order of their precedence. First, it looks at the root location of the class path. Next, it looks inside the config directory of the class path. After that, it checks the current directory from which the application is started. Then it checks the config directory under the current directory. It also checks the immediate child directories under the external config directories. When the same property is defined in multiple locations, the value from higher precedent location is used. For example, suppose server.port is 8080 inside the jar, but an external config application.properties file defines it as 9090, then the effective value will be 9090. This allows the same application jar to use different configuration values across environments. Let's see how we can customize the configuration search. Spring Boot allows us to customize the configuration file name and location. We can use spring.config.name when we want to change the default configuration file name. Suppose the spring config name is my project, then the Spring Boot will look for my project.properties or YML file instead of default application file. We can also use spring.config.location to specify a different configuration location. For example, if spring.config.location is equals to file.custom, this tells Spring Boot to use specified location for config file. One important point to note is that the Spring config location changes the default search location. If we want to add another location while retaining the default, Spring Boot provides spring.config additional-location properties. So remember three things. Spring Boot uses conventional configuration file names. It searches both class path and external location using a defined precedence. And we can customize the file name or a config location when required. That is how Spring Boot find and load the application configuration. I hope this was useful. Thank you for watching Architect's Diary.